Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, Castalia House. So things are getting very, very interesting and very, very heated in the comic space, even more so than the ordinary. Now, for once, it's kind of nice to be able to just sort of sit back and watch the drama, because none of this has anything whatsoever to do with Archaven or Dark Legion, us, anybody we publish. And good evening to all the Dark Streamers all across the world. So tonight I wanted to discuss the lawyer wars. There's actually two at least, that are going on at the moment. And then, of course, there's the non-existent non-case related to the ComicsGate trademark. And so I thought we would just hit all three of them at once. In fact, we're really only going to hit two of them because one of them I know literally nothing about. And in fact, I don't know for sure that it's actually ongoing. It's just that it's been reported in a couple places. But the news today was that Richard Meyer, also known as Diversity in Comics, has filed a lawsuit for defamation and tortious interference against Mark Waid, who is a writer for Marvel. Now, what's interesting about it, the thing that I thought was most interesting about it, is that Mark Waid, the Marvel writer, who doesn't really strike me as somebody who has a particular amount of resources, is actually got a very high-powered international elite attorney. And so you tend to think that this is somebody who is recommended to him by Marvel, because Marvel Disney is obviously about as elite as it gets when you're talking about lawyers and the law and so forth. Now, I am not a lawyer, but one of my best friends is a elite one. In fact, his wife is also an extremely elite one. And so I'm a little less ignorant on the subject than you might expect. And so the interesting thing about this particular lawsuit is that, number one, the defamation claim is ridiculous. It is very, very hard to win a defamation claim in the United States. If this was in England, if this was in a couple other legal jurisdictions, maybe there's a decent chance, but not in the States. However, the tortious interference claim is quite possibly serious, and it is quite possibly legitimate. We don't know, because we do not know what went into Avalanche Press's decision-making. Now, the circumstantial evidence does tend to indicate that Mark Waid's call to them and the contract subsequently being withdrawn was causal, that there was a causal relationship between those two things. But for all we know at the moment, it's just circumstantial evidence. This is why there's a part of the legal process called discovery, when you get to interview the other side under oath, take affidavits, and then, of course, request any and all communications that were related to that decision. And so, again, we don't know. Avalanche has very publicly stated that Mark Waid's phone call had nothing to do with their decision. But of course, they might be lying. They can say whatever they want, and it's totally meaningless at this point in time, given Avalanche's obvious desire to stay in with the comics book mainstream, with the comics industry mainstream. I don't think that their word can be taken seriously. And so we'll find out down the road, because I don't think this will ever go to trial. But I think that if Discovery is going to reveal that Mark Waid's interference did cause Avalanche to break their contract with Richard Meyer, then Waid is going to be advised to settle. And given that he may not even be paying for his lawyer himself, he may not have a whole lot to say about it. So, and here's the thing. At this point in time, I don't think that either Richard Meyer and his attorney or Mark Waid and his attorney actually know what the truth is. You know, the only people who really know what the truth is are not actually party to the lawsuit, and that's the people at Avalanche Press. But that being said, a lot of the stuff that people are talking about and that people are saying about the whole lawsuit are totally ridiculous. You know, they're trying to bring up stuff related to past comments that Richard's made. They're trying to bring up comments that Mark Waid has made and all that sort of thing. What you have to understand is that none of that matters. In general, and you can check this out on Infogalactic, but there are 6 elements to a claim of tortious interference. Now, if you listen to these, you'll notice that all of the self-appointed legal experts on sites like Bounding into Comics and Bleeding Cool and what else, they're not even addressing the relevant points. So the 6 points are the existence of a contractual relationship or beneficial business relationship between the two parties. Was there one between Richard Meyer and Avalanche Press? Yes, there was a contract. Number 2, knowledge of that relationship by a third party. There was knowledge of that. Mark Waid knew about it. 3, intent of the third party to induce a party to the relationship to breach the relationship. Did Mark Waid have that intent? Yes, we know he had that intent. He publicly stated it. 4, lack of any privilege on the part of the third party to induce such a breach. Obviously, as a freelancer working for Marvel, he had nothing to do with either company. So 4 is also confirmed. 5, the contractual relationship is breached. Was it breached? Yes, it was. That's also a yes. And then 6, damage to the party against whom the breach occurs. Now that's the one area that might be the weak link for Richard Meyer's case. You know, it is somewhat troubling that he was saying things that are manifestly not true. Saying, well, I couldn't get it published by any other publisher. I can't speak for any other publisher, but all I know is that we never heard from Richard Meyer. Dark Legion never heard from Richard Meyer. Archaven Comics would not have published him, but Dark Legion might have. And so if he didn't talk to us, then he probably didn't talk to Top Cow. He probably didn't talk to DC. He probably didn't talk to IDW, or Image. I don't know who he talked to, but to claim that you could not be published by any other publisher when at least one other publisher knows that you were never contacted, you know, I think that you need to be careful about making obviously false claims like that. If you make a false claim, if you make a claim that everybody knows is false, it's going to be shot down. Now, that doesn't mean that Richard Meyer hasn't been damaged by it. Certainly, I think that you can probably make a pretty good case that his reputation was damaged, considering the level of incendiary attacks and so forth on him. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like the guy. I don't know the guy. Literally, the only thing I know about the guy is that he does nothing but badmouth me and Arkhaven and everything to do, and Dark Legion and everything to do with us. So, as far as I'm concerned, I can't honestly say that we're definitely not standing with him. We're also definitely not standing with Mark Waid. We're just sitting here watching this and learning as much as we can about the industry. But as a general rule, you have to realize that about 95% of what people say with regards to lawsuits and the law and, oh, you should sue them, or, oh, you're at risk of being sued, almost all that stuff is complete nonsense. Okay? And just so you understand that I know what I'm talking about, my computer game company, Fenris Wolf, was engaged in a 2.5-year legal battle against a very large New York-based publisher, GT Interactive. And we not only beat them, but they ended up paying us a very large settlement, which was totally ridiculous because all they needed to do in the beginning was send us a letter. And so I do know what I'm talking about with regards to this stuff. And the fact that some pissant lawyers that are friends with Ethan Van Sciver try to claim I don't know what I'm talking about, well, all I can say is I'd be real hesitant about taking that guy's legal advice. Let's see here. But now that I've mentioned that, let's talk about that ridiculous claim concerning Ethan Van Sciver and the whole trademark scenario. Now, first of all, let me point out several things. Number one, I never filed for a trademark on ComicsGate. Number two, I never filed for a copyright on ComicsGate. Number three, no company or individual associated with me in any way, shape, or form ever filed for any sort of copyright or trademark or anything else related to ComicsGate. We never had any intention whatsoever of trying to monetize ComicsGate. None whatsoever. Furthermore, I am not the owner of Arkhaven Comics. I did not do anything related to any sort of trademark or copyright. And so the idea that I was going to be sued over something that I didn't do, I wasn't connected to, and no one that I was connected to had anything to do with, was absolutely and utterly absurd. Ethan Van Sciver and his moronic lawyers would have just as reasonably sued me for trying to trademark Superman or Star Wars or anything else that I didn't do and that I'm not responsible for. Even if we had. Here's how stupid their moronic claims were. Even if Arkhaven had filed for a trademark, even if we had tried to register a copyright or something, I would not be a party to it. Okay? That's how dumb their threats were. I finally got, long after Ethan said that his lawyers had sent me something, I finally got a cease and desist from them, and it was absolutely absurd. And I don't know if these guys are directly involved. I mean, I paid no attention to it because, like I said, it was totally irrelevant. But I don't know if this is the same law firm that is handling Richard Meyer's case. I understand that the guy who is always talking on YouTube is not the actual lawyer involved. But what I can say is that if those guys are responsible for Richard Meyer's case, he's going to lose. Because if they are so dumb, if they are so lazy and incapable of doing their homework as to send me personally a cease and desist for something that I haven't done and that I am not even a possible party to, then there is absolutely no way that they are going to win a case against a top-notch elite lawyer like Mark Zaid. So that's my perspective. You can take it or leave it. But the fact of the matter is that, when you see incompetence and ineptitude of the sort that we've witnessed from some of the legal folks surrounding the ComicsGate people, I don't think that it's very likely that they're going to be very successful, even if they have a pretty good case. And like I said, Richard Meyer clearly qualifies on at least 5 of the 6 counts. I should say the actions on the part of the person that Richard Meyer is suing definitely meet the definition on 5 of the 6 counts. The challenge for them is going to be proving that 6th count of damages. And considering how inept some of these guys have shown themselves to be in my personal experience of them, then I'm dubious that they're going to be able to do that. Do good lawyers tend to be on the right? In my experience, the good contract lawyers are on the right, but all the activist lawyers are on the left. And so that's why the left engages in so much more lawfare, because none of the right-wing lawyers do that. I still can't get over the inability of ComicsGate to understand the difference between copyright, trademark, and imprint. Well, welcome to my universe. There's a reason why I coined the acronym MPAI. Most people are idiots. I don't get surprised by that kind of nonsense anymore because I have witnessed it so many times from so many people in so many different circumstances. People do and say very, very stupid things. People say things all the time without thinking about what they're saying. I find it kind of funny that because I speak slowly when I'm talking on video, people often say, oh, that somehow indicates that Vox is not intelligent. But think about this. Amanda Robb, in that NPR hit piece on me and Chuck Dixon, she complained about the fact that she conducted a 3-hour interview with me, and she got nothing that she could use against me. So, do you think that's an accident? How many of you can sit down and talk for 3 hours to somebody who is actively seeking to get something, anything that they can use against you, and give them literally nothing? The only thing that she got was that she got me answering the question on women's suffrage. I mean, that's not a big deal. That's not harmful. I've written on it on the blog dozens of times. I engaged in a debate, and where I took the position of opposing women's suffrage. I mean, this was a multi-post, multi-day debate, and all she got was me confirming something that I have repeatedly written about. So, something to keep in mind when you're judging people by how quick they happen to speak. Now, sometimes very intelligent people do speak very quickly and very accurately. Milo Yiannopoulos can articulate intelligent and sophisticated ideas off the cuff faster and more accurately than anybody I've ever met. So, people can do it. I'm just not one of them. Let's see. Any tips for keeping high morale surrounded by idiots? Don't take their opinion seriously. Josiah has a good question. What would be required for them to prove the 6th issue? I don't know. That's well outside my area of expertise. Some people have said that the fact that he had a successful crowdfunding might make that difficult. I don't know. What does Richard have against your comics company? What he has against it is that he is afraid of getting lumped in with it. He is a classic moderate conservative, and so he was doing his usual virtual signaling, and of course, it has proven totally and utterly worthless. I mean, it's kind of funny. There's a big comic site that I understand is going to be running a very long interview with me quite soon. And it was interesting because, it wasn't the sort of hit piece that the NPR one was. And so I think it's going to shock the cucks and moderates more than anyone when they realize that even the SJWs understand that while we're definitely the other side, that, we're even less likely to be tarred by the Nazi white supremacist blah frickin' blah label than they are. Why? Because we actually stand for something. We actually have a coherent message. They don't. And because they stand for nothing, it's very easy for them to get painted as the ComicsGate Nazi hater bigots, as indeed they are being tarred on a regular basis. And you know what? I don't give a damn. We might have allied with them, but I wouldn't do it now. They're untrustworthy snakes. I'm not saying all ComicsGaters. I'm talking about the Two-Face Van Skyvers. I'm talking about Richard Myers. These are not good people. These are not trustworthy people. They're not SJWs and they're not the enemy. But they're definitely not someone that you want to stand beside and rely upon in any way, shape, or form. In my experience, talking slowly is often because someone's brain is going much faster than their mouth. Yeah, one of the things I had to learn, in fact, I re-recorded a Voxiversity video. It's the next Voxiversity. And I actually recorded it a second time today because I'm learning to trust my producer. He said, look, I can tell when you are not only talking but you're talking and you're listening to your own words, and then you're editing as you're going along. I said, don't do that. I said, just talk. If you screw up, I'll take it out. If you sneeze or pick your nose, I'll take it out. Just trust me to not make you look like an idiot, and just relax. And so, I'm never going to be a video star. I'm never going to be Milo or PewDiePie or even someone like Ethan Van Sciver. It's not what I do. But at least I have gotten more comfortable and I've improved on video. So, thoughts on the new trade deal are too soon to say? Way too soon to say. Way too soon to say. What gets me is that both DNC and EVS would cite SJW Always Live quite a lot before they had much of a platform. Yeah, I don't quite get that. I mean, it's like they read it, but they didn't understand it. It's just very strange, and short-sighted. But it's also entirely possible that they're just not very bright. Some people find it difficult to correctly anticipate the obvious consequences of their actions. Who knows? I've been delighted to see the overlapping chain consisting of yourself, Cernovich, AJ, and Molly, but have noticed a time gap since Molly. I hope the links maintain. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I definitely let Stefan down. We had a book of his that we were going to publish, a novel, and we did get it edited, but we just didn't get it out in a reasonable period of time. It wasn't a big priority. Now, I very much doubt that. I very much doubt. Stefan is a good man. He's not particularly thin-skinned, and I very much doubt that it has anything to do with that. But that's like literally the only thing that where there's been any even possible conflict between us, and that's entirely my fault. So, he's doing what he's doing, and maybe I'm too controversial. Maybe he's not comfortable with my overt nationalism. I don't know, and I'm not concerned about it. He's a good guy. I support him. It's not his responsibility to prop me up or put me on his show. And if there are other people that serve his purpose better, more power to him. It's fine. Will you write about Nike and the Kaepernick ad? Probably not. I mean, there's some really funny memes, but other than that, who cares? I pay no attention to either Nike or Colin Kaepernick. By staking out a claim in the middle, the ComicsGate keepers have ensured they will be isolated in no man's land with the fire coming in from both sides. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the problem with trying to sit on a fence, when things heat up. And more importantly, what they're learning is that nobody on either side respects them. The guy that interviewed me, he's on the other side. Maybe he's even an enemy, I don't know. But I can respect him because he was addressing some of these issues directly. And he's obviously a smart guy based on the questions that he asked. Now, whether he respects me or not, I don't know. I can't speak for him. But he did treat me respectfully in the interview in a way that that Al Lerner from NPR did not treat Chuck Dixon with any respect. And the way that Amanda Robb did not treat me with any respect in that ridiculous hit piece. Let's see, thoughts on Jeremy Corbyn? I think that I think that he's fairly principled in his leftism, but I don't think that he has the courage to take on to really excuse me. I don't think that he has shown the courage to really clean out his party and the resistance to him the way that he needs to. I also don't think that he's had the courage to come out and strongly defend Brexit, which he would have to do. I don't think he's a serious threat to defeat the Tories. All the Tories need to do is deliver a strong Brexit, and they'll win in a landslide. The problem that they're having is that you've got a bunch of Remainers and crypto Remainers trying to weaken Brexit as much as possible. If they simply had put a strong Brexiteer in charge and followed through with it, they would be winning the next election no problem. Your interview with Jones was hilarious. He's referring to Alex Jones there. Every time you criticize civic nationalism, Jones tried to bulldoze you but failed. Look, civic nationalism just cannot survive a proper critique anymore. There's nothing there. There's nothing left. The Z-Man, I'm going to have to link this tomorrow. The Z-Man has an excellent article called A Letter to Civic Nationalists. Civic nationalism is globalism light. Civic nationalism doesn't work. Look, I understand the emotional appeal. I feel the emotional appeal. But it doesn't work. Civic nationalism has failed. The neoliberal world order has failed. The whole United Nations world peace thing has failed. These things don't work. Deal with it. Whether you like the consequences or not is irrelevant. That's the reality. Al liked the discussion between Stefan and I on Dostoevsky. Are you going to put your InfoWars segment up on the blog? No, I don't think so. Let's see. Played Halo again. Okay. What is a crypto Remainer? A crypto Remainer is an English politician who pretends to be working towards Brexit, but secretly would like to keep the UK in the European Union. EBS had a live stream last night with Chuck, and it felt like Ethan wanted to buddy with Chuck like a salesman. Well, he does. Ethan is trying to, he's publicly stated that he wants to try to hire Chuck away from Arkhaven. It's not going to happen. Among other things, Ethan Van Sciver simply cannot draw enough to keep up with Chuck Dixon. 10 Ethan Van Scivers don't draw fast enough to keep up with Chuck Dixon. If Chuck wants to do some work for Ethan, fine. I don't own Chuck. I don't control Chuck. The one rule at Arkhaven is the legend Chuck Dixon does whatever the fuck he wants. I don't even tell him how to do or what to do on the comics that he does with us. I didn't just slap the Alt Hero logo on there on the second issue. I called him up. We talked about it. Said, hey, Alt Hero seems to be selling a bit better than Chuck Dixon's Avalon. Should we go ahead and make the tie clear on the cover? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So, as a result, I won't be surprised if InfoWars picks up that comic as well. We'll see. But, the thing is that people like Two-Face always think that they can manipulate people and put their words in their ear and change their thinking and control the situation, and they're constantly trying to manipulate and whisper, and they're worm tongues. It's just like Lord of the Rings. They're worm tongues. But That's not how you. I mean, that sort of influence and manipulation requires so much hard work and active management. I mean, my goodness, who's got time for it? I certainly don't. I find the problem with talking to others on the right is that they worship the Constitution and actually believe they will restore it to its original intent. It is a problem, and it's stupid. You know, nobody cares about the concepts of the Constitution except for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, because the Constitution is a written form of their values, and those values are not shared by people from other traditions, even in Europe. Will Nike tank like the NFL and Star Wars because of their convergence? Possibly. I guess it depends on what the basis of their appeal is. I mean, if the basis of their appeal is superior shoes, then probably not. You know, that kind of convergence doesn't seem like it's going to affect their shoe manufacturing much. EVS showed his true face. He is insulting Chuck's intelligence. If he thinks they'll work together, EVS showed you simply cannot trust him. Oh, yeah, I mean, I would be very, very surprised if the legend Chuck Dixon did not see through Ethan's two-faced nature. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. You'd have to ask him. But but what's significant about this, and what I like about this, is that it demonstrates Two-Face's malicious nature. He's a malicious guy. And so, he is. The funny thing is, what a lot of you don't realize is that, despite all of his triumphant, we ran Vox off and he cried and all this other, gamma bullshit, he is butthurt over this. He is seriously butthurt over this. Calling him Two-Face burns him like you would not believe, because the best rhetoric is rooted in the truth. I'm not bothered when they're running around saying that, oh, we ran you off of YouTube and you cried and all this. It's total bullshit. They might as well accuse me of having, shot up heroin and OD'd live on YouTube. It's total fiction. But, constructing gamma delusion bubbles is what gamma males do. How do you explain that anti-Civnat views have nothing to do with hate? I don't. I just point out that they are like gravity. You don't have to hate the ground, and you don't have to hate the ball to predict that if you drop it, it's going to land on the ground. People seem to be capable of following that. Do you think Jared Taylor is helpful to the nationalist movement? I don't know. I don't think about Jared Taylor at all. I haven't read his stuff. I don't really pay any attention. I have no opinion. Also, a lot of the Enlightenment principles behind the Constitution are what got us where we are. That's true. I mean, the Enlightenment was a wrong turn. And that's something else. Just like civic nationalism, that's something else that's very difficult for a lot of people to accept. Is there a possibility of saving the Converge Marvel and Star Wars? No, none whatsoever. We need to, again, build our own institutions. We're getting there. EVS once talked about how during a PSA about cleft-lipped children at the movie theater, he said, "Ew," out loud, and his wife had to hit him. Okay. Let's see. Why is hate inherently a bad thing? It's not. Hate is just the flip side of love. Actually, it's not that either. Indifference is the flip side. Let's see. Ran off? No, they flushed and wasted a huge opportunity. Oh, I should think so. Thoughts on Bolsonaro? I don't know what you're talking about. Do you predict Kavanaugh being put on the Supreme Court? Yes, I think that he will be confirmed. So, anyhow, I should mention before, by the way, before we wrap this up, we have a new book out from Castalia House. If you are of a more intellectual bent, you're going to love this book. Dr. Hallpike destroys people's arguments better than anybody I've ever read. He is a genuine anthropologist. He spent years living in Papua New Guinea and Ethiopia with very primitive tribes. So he actually knows what he's talking about. And what he demolishes is some very popular perspectives on human evolution and development from people like Yuval Harari, the author of *Sapiens*, Noam Chomsky, who talks about the development of language, and what he really does a number on, what he brutalizes in a manner that is borders on the criminal, is evolutionary psychology. He completely destroys it. He's also published with Castalia House. He's also published "Do We Need God to Be Good?" That's also an excellent book. I strongly recommend these books. The most remarkable thing about this guy is that he's 82 years old. I mean, I hope that I am as sharp as he is at 82. It's amazing. I mean, he's really, truly inspirational. I mean, when you read this, I want you to make sure that you realize this is something that an 82-year-old guy wrote. I mean, because some of this stuff is written very recently. And so it's really remarkable, not just for that, it's remarkable in its own right. Really very powerful ammunition. If you ever find yourself in discussions with people who are evolutionary psychologists or people who are nurture versus nature and that sort of thing, you should definitely check out this book. The ebook is now available on Amazon, and we'll have the print version out, the paperback version out very soon. So I highly recommend it. A couple last questions. Is that book for sale today or just ebook? It's just the ebook right now. Let's see. I have read the entire Jordanetic series on your blog. I don't expect a response, but I suspect maybe your thrashing of JBP may have Stefan doing very careful and thorough reading. That'd be great. I mean, I understand that his natural inclination is to support Jordan Peterson. That makes sense. Jordan Peterson looks like a good guy. He says a lot of stuff that I think would be appealing to Stefan. And so, but, and I wouldn't, from a pure marketing point of view, Stefan would do well to side with Jordan Peterson rather than, the pain in the ass iconoclast. But, I'm who I am. I speak the truth as best I see it and understand it. If I get it wrong, I'll admit it. But in the case of Jordan Peterson, I'm not wrong. So, have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Check out Ship of Fools if you get the chance. And I will look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream. Have a good evening.